my name is Carley Knobloch, and I work for AudioVisions. We are an ultra-luxury residential custom integration company, and that simply means that we put layers of technology that provide luxury and comfort and safety into all the beautiful projects that you all work on. And, you know, a big part of what we do every day is translating design intent into, when it comes to lighting and lighting control, into control that actually feels beautiful to live with. I'm joined by three people tonight who have very different but very complementary perspectives when it comes to lighting and lighting control. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with Chris, and then Carlos, and then Teal.
My name is Chris Shanley. I'm a principal and studio director at Marmol Radziner in West Los Angeles. I've been with the firm for over 30 years, and my focus in those 30 years has been a lot on restoration and rehabilitation of historic structures, mostly in residential. I was the project manager for the restoration of the Kaufman House in Palm Springs, which won a national AIA award in 2001. And it's just been a great ride for the 30 years with Ron and Leo, who some of you may know, and we've actually been working a lot with AudioVisions in the last couple of years, so thanks to you guys for putting this on, so I'm happy to be here. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, that's right.
Teal has amazing shoes on that I'm jealous I didn't give her. Like, who makes, is that United? Like,
Carlos, do you want to tell everyone who you are, or?
Carlos Madrid, SOM. What the hell do I do? I don't know. You know, it's buildings, it's interiors, it's products. I design lights. Later on, we're going to talk about, like, who cares about the object of light? It's like the quality of light. And, you know, what's most important is that I've worked with Teal since 1996. And so I rely on her for all my lighting, and we've won many awards together, and it's amazing. So welcome.
Thanks, Carlos. How can I follow that? So I'm so pleased to be here and to talk about my favorite subject. We often start projects by saying we think we have the best job on the team because we get to work with light and we get to work with incredible collaborators. So we're all striving to make places that are incredible for people to occupy. Some of them might need to feel very festive or maybe even sometimes somber. But the way you help accomplish that is by creating incredible volumes and spaces to occupy, but also to realize with light. And so I do want to thank the committee who put this together and all of you who showed up on a somewhat rainy night. And it's a lot to put an event like this together, and I get to sort of show up at the last minute and chat with my friends. So I would love to start us out. I'm Teal Brogden with Horton Lees Brogden Lighting Design, and I've been in the business for more years than you have, and a lot more years than you have.
Oh, I'm the kid.
He's the kid in the crowd. And I do like shoes, so if anybody wants to contribute to the shoe fund, we've got a little bucket in the back over there. But I would like to ask everybody to close their eyes and think about the first time in their lives that they actually thought about or recognized or got a little bit of a emotional rush from light. And I'd like you to think about how it impacted your feeling. And it might have been a tiny little thing or a big, huge, amazing thing. And I want you, here's the challenge, to hold on to that, because in the Q&A, maybe we'll do some sharing on what that experience was and how it might have affected your journey in life. So with that, I'll hand it back.
Okay. I want to start loosely and creatively, because light is never really just starts as a speck. It's so much more, as you said, Teal. So where do you draw inspiration from when it comes to lighting? Is it an image? Is it a feeling? A language? Is it the Death Star? We talked about this on our prep call. So Chris, go ahead and start, and then Teal, and then Carlos.
Being an architect, it's not something that I think are taught in school, first of all. It's something that I think I've learned in doing projects. And to me, we did this. We did a panel discussion last fall out in the desert, and the one thing that I kind of mentioned in Teal, when you brought up the issue of the inspiration, it was when I was working on the Kaufman House, and for years, not years, but whatever, for a long time, we were seeing the house during the day, and we were seeing the materials, and because there was no power and there was no light. And then I was there when we were getting near the end of the project, and it was the first time we turned on light in the house, all the light. And it was mesmerizing. It was like magical, because if you don't know the house, it was designed by Richard Neutra, and Neutra was obsessed with lighting. No one even talks about what he did with lighting and how much he studied it, but we pored over drawings and stuff like that. He made custom fixtures, he designed custom fixtures, and he did it so minimally that at night it wasn't overlit, it was just beautifully lit. And I called the owner and I said, I'm looking at the house for the first time with light, and it is just amazing. Like, it is just, and since then, and that's been 25 years more, that I worked on that project, and that's inspired me ever since to be better and be more thoughtful about how to integrate light into the architecture, and work with lighting consultants to understand what their goals are and what they're trying to do, and be collaborative in a way that it's not just, here, Teal, like, please just do me a lighting plan, which I'm sure a lot of architects do. I think at our office, we're multidisciplinary, and so I think we respect all the disciplines, and we try to collaborate with them, because it's all part of the design. It doesn't just stop with what we do architecturally. It's about the lighting, it's about the furniture, it's about the materials, to make it all poetic, as as the theme of tonight. And one of my inspiration images was the MIT Chapel done by Eero Saarinen, and because we talked about how, what's the approach, and to me, we brought up like less is more, which is the famous Mies quote about lighting, and just keep it simple. Let it, think about it. It's got to be poetry, as opposed to just what's functional.
Especially when it's historical and you don't want to stray too far from what might have been appropriate for the time. And so, but it's such a gift that we have lighting that we can turn on when the sun goes down, and we have this utilitarian aspect of it, but also this incredible opportunity for beauty. So that's great.
For the longest time, seeing just lights in such a sporadic layout at that house, but then switching the fixtures on and seeing what that effect was just mind-blowing.
Well, I would say I just want to build on that theme that, that our theme tonight is the poetry of light. And when we start a project, we often will say, what are the words that you're using to describe the experience here? And we had a client one time say, intimidation. And we thought, so how do we use light to create maybe a feeling of intimidation? Now, there was more to it. It wasn't quite as awful as that sounds, but they wanted to project power. And so how could we work with light and architecture to project power? And so there are so many things that we want to do with light and can do with light, but we're part of a team. And I also had an architect one time ask me, are you fixture pickers? Or are you design collaborators? And I was like, wow. But, sometimes we land on a project and that's how we start. And we have to start from there. And then we grow the relationship and have conversations. And words matter, emotions matter. Drawing inspiration from the inspiration that the team has and finding a way to really anchor our process, because there are a lot of steps along the way that we all know. Value engineering and construction challenges, all that. We need to work through that. We do that. But we need to hold on to what really the conceptual foundation is of the project and make sure that we're staying true to that North Star.
Excellent. Carlos.
Drawing inspiration from the inspiration that the team has and finding a way to really anchor our process, because there are a lot of steps along the way that we all know. value engineering and construction challenges, all that. We need to work through that. We do that. But we need to hold on to what really the conceptual foundation is of the project and make sure that we're staying true to that North Star.
Excellent. Carlos.
Okay. I usually have a different response or approach or we discussed this a few days ago, and it made me think a lot. And so, outside of my academic world and professional world, being in nightclubs, and as a teenager in my early 20s, going to nightclubs, concerts, and alcohol, other substances, like getting lost in the experience of light that these events deliver. I became very mesmerized by it. So then, cut to my professional world in 1996. Still a kid, somewhat. With light was our shoes. Teal, and then my connection with light back was to the shoes. Back to the shoes was critical, and then that created a bond between us, and to then create our profession. Being in nightclubs, and as a teenager in my early 20s, going to nightclubs, concerts, getting lost in the experience of light that these events deliver. I became very mesmerized by it. So then, cut to my professional world in 1996 as still a kid, somewhat. Met Teal, and that created a bond between us, and to then create our professional world together. But nonetheless, the personal experiences of enjoyment and social life is what influences me. Not, of course, the academic world and the beautiful projects you've done. That's amazing. But the start was personal experiences.
Wonderful. So we have history, beauty, power and intimidation, ecstasy and partying.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure I recap that for everyone.
I'm just trying to put some diversity into this.
You're doing a great
and not
job.
to be too professional.
There was some ecstasy and intimidation on Kaufman House, too. So.
Listen.
And we weren't invited.
I just didn't want to talk about it.
Listen, we run the gamut of emotions here on these projects. Okay, Chris, I want to stay with this idea of story for a moment. So how do you define the poetry of light in your own work as an architect, if you could say slightly more than you did, and which I feel like you've already answered the question. But keep going. What kind of narratives can it create, not just in the Kaufman House, but in other spaces that you've designed?
It's hard. I mean, because it's hard to not it's hard to kind of make lighting like part of, as an architect, it's always a struggle, I think. To balance everything, because we're balancing so many things, and I'm going to pat myself on the back for that. But no, but I think you have to understand, it's hard, and it's always hard to kind of keep everyone in the forefront, keep thinking about lighting options, but now it's become second nature to me. I mean, I was just talking today with, or meeting on a project. We're going to be restoring Oscar Niemeier's house in Santa Monica, the only Oscar Niemeyer house in North America. And if you don't know, he's deceased, but is a famous Brazilian architect, amazing stuff. And I'm already talking about, well, this is an opportunity for us to light, and how we adjust the architecture to integrate more lighting, because going back to that experience with Kaufman, it's like I don't want it to be an afterthought. I don't want it to come in later and then adjust things. It's about integrating that concept already, and then as we bring the lighting consultants in, they can enhance that and also look at other ways that we might be missing something, and other experiences. But yeah, lighting can just make things look, if it's done the right way, it can, like I said, between like the Kaufman House at day and night, it's just a different experience. And if you get it right, it's amazing. So, I don't know.
I think we can all agree, for sure. Carlos, I want to zoom in now. What lighting details make the biggest emotional impact? What are the things that people maybe unconsciously notice, but they would miss if it disappeared, or just little things that you've learned over time make the biggest impact?
I don't know if this answers this exactly as we mentioned the other day, but the quality of light is so much more important than the object of light. I think a lot of people focus on light fixtures and what they look like, but what I've learned, back to Teal, is the quality of light. You can have inexpensive projects. I work for SOM. Right? We have these huge projects and high budgets, but there's also low budget projects, and you can make an amazing project with no money look fantastic with light. Light, to me, is the most important part of the palette, of your material palette, because you can have a very fancy and expensive project that bad lighting makes it not so good.
So this brings us to process. So how early should lighting be a part of the design conversation if the goal is something poetic rather than purely functional? I think you know what I'm driving at.
Well, I think, I'll ask the lighting designers in the room what they might think. But I think that we like to think that natural light is the first light. And as the architecture is developing, if there's a way to sculpt the architecture with light. So we'd like to be at the table when you're thinking that way, but I believe that over time you really learn how to work with light and space and form. And you can bring a lighting designer in to help you confirm your intuition, or help you brainstorm ideas from the very beginning. So sooner is better. But even if there are limitations that can't allow you to bring a design partner in, there are ways that lighting designers or lighting collaborators of all kinds, we have all kinds of lighting collaborators in the room, can help you make a difference by even looking at the quality of the products you're looking at, et cetera. So always great to have those thought partners as early as possible in the process.
We love to hear that, because we're always looking to be in the project as early as possible so that the wiring and the planning can support all of the things that you want to do from a technical perspective. Chris?
Yeah, I think so. When we were preparing for this panel discussion, I think we were talking about the conversation about lighting design tools, in terms of how to communicate that to a client, and because one of the things that I brought up was that we don't, like, when people do computer renderings and stuff like that, which we all do and they're all marketed, I guarantee you probably 5% of those renderings have any night renderings which show lighting, and you look at any Architectural Digest publication of any project, and I guarantee you there's not a lot of night shots of those projects that feature lighting, which I think, again, does a disservice to the whole concept of lighting, because lighting is so much a part of the design that, in fact, I was trying to look for examples of our projects that have lighting, and I couldn't find a lot. And so I told our marketing team, I said, why can't the photographers take night shots of our projects that show lighting? Because that's the other half of how buildings live at night, especially on homes, for clients. That's half of their life experiences, being in the being in the house at night, walking through it and seeing the light. So yeah, I think it is about integrating it and thinking about it as an architect, but then integrating the lighting consultants as soon as possible and starting this dialogue, as Teal said, about just concepts. What are the concepts? What are we trying? What is the goal? What are the emotions we're trying to evoke here? Artwork. Where's the artwork? We talk about artwork, where artwork might be. We actually label art walls when we're doing design layouts. And ask the client, do you have artwork you like to feature? Sculpture, do you want to light it at night? Do you want to light it just from, at day, with a skylight or something like that? So, I think that's the thing that we enjoy the most at the office about doing the residential work, because a lot of our work is residential, is that having those intimate conversations with the client, because this is their, this is the most important investment they're going to make besides their retirement. It's a huge investment. and to kind of be one-on-one with them and ask them those questions and make their dreams a reality. There's nothing like it. There's nothing more fulfilling to me, when you pull it off and you got a client that's like walks into the house. And another experience was a client who had a Cliff May house, and we walked it at night. I was with her just by myself, and she said, I never imagined that this could be so beautiful at night. And it was just like, yeah, it's awesome.
Two things come to mind. Photography. I always demand we do sunrise and sunset, so it makes a very long day. And then lighting mock-ups, Teal. We've done. You'll see on this our work over there. We did mock-ups for LAX at 2 a.m. in Rancho Cucamonga. So
after going to the club,
as much as we love our jobs, you're like, gotta show up in the middle of the night to do lighting mock-ups. You're like, oh, that's rough.
No, but
that's dedication, though.
Yes. And, I love what you said, because we've all, of course, been in spaces that don't feel like they have been tailored for people. They've just been kind of slapped together in a very impersonal way. So I think, you can tell when somebody's been thoughtful about the art and how it's going to be lit and where it's going to be. And of course, all of that has to happen years before anybody moves in and hangs anything on the wall. So that attention to detail is wonderful. And Teal, I love what you said about daylight, because of course they work hand in hand. Okay, Teal. I want to talk directly about technology now, because in this space, it's undeniably become part of the picture. It's why we're here. So with the rise of tunable and dynamic lighting, has technology brought us closer to or further from the poetic aspects of light?
That's such a great question. And I want to say, with technology, I think we all can say, how many ways can something go wrong? Oh my God. So
it's job security for us.
But the question of just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And we all as designers, everybody in this room thinks that way, right? And we have clients that we walk through the journey of design and say, yes, you could do this, but do you really want to do this, and do you need to do it? And at some point, does it become visual noise? And I think we can all remember the time when LED lights, when they had the color changing capability, and they came out of the box and they would cycle through all their colors. And then before you knew it, in our cityscapes, we would see these rainbow cycles everywhere. And so what we really want to ask is, with all of this technology, how are we realizing the vision, right? And how are it's always all these ideas, and then how do we edit them down to the essence of what we're trying to accomplish? And sometimes, we often think, and we've talked about, at LAX, for example, just because you can put colored light everywhere, is that really the right thing to do? Or do you do it in one anchoring spot or in one swooping gesture? That beautiful artwork at the gateway, that was a revelation, and beautifully handled with which colors are used, et cetera. And that was hours and hours and hours of the artist picking those colors and having a reason why. And, I have to say, we got to LAX and we got to work with them, and we said, how do you pick deviation from those colors? And the maintenance guy does it when the Dodgers win. And we thought, okay, we all have to think about that. If we're going to give these tools to our clients, do we help prepare them for being good stewards of those systems that we're giving them?
Sure. There's so many more levers to pull. And I often think of lighting designers talking about painting with light. And, the cool thing about Ketra, and I forgot to mention that immediately following our panel, we're going to have a little Ketra demonstration, is that really when they're used thoughtfully, they don't call attention to themselves, or they can very much call attention to themselves. And I think the art is trying to find those brushes and colors that bring us some comfort or bring us some imposition if that's what we're going for, and finding those tools that really meet the creative brief. Looking ahead 10 years, what does the intersection of light, design, technology, and human well-being look like? Let's start with Chris, then Carlos, and then Teal again.
Blade Runner? I actually don't have a good answer to that, in my opinion, but I think just hearing some of the conversations we've had, from Teal in this panel discussion earlier, I hope that it can be more integrated. I don't know. Listen, I would just say, in terms of, what I can talk about is, the Ketra system and how that's been transformative for some clients, because that is a newish product, the tunable lighting. A client who has, nice artwork and bought it's all history stuff. So it was a William Cody house out in the desert, and El Dorado. Yeah, thanks, Gabriel. And he literally, so we could retrofit. We were able to retrofit into the existing light fixtures Ketra bulbs, which was just absolutely mind blowing to him. Once he understood what we could do with it, and what he could do is he could basically get the right color temperature on a piece of artwork in one corner of the room, have the coffee table be of a certain brightness and warmth and color on that, and then have the fireplace. And he could tune all of that. They could all be different. But when you look at it as a whole, it was just like, oh my God, this is like a masterpiece. This is just magical. It's just enough there. Then, of course, there's the dimming. And like I said, I said this in the last panel discussion we had in the fall, which was Ketra is just an amazing technology. I just wish they could make things smaller. So,
Are there people here that could help us with that?
yes, you said that last time.
Yes. Carlos.
I wrote down Blade Runner. You were supposed to say retirement. I was going to say
in 10 years, it's going to be retirement. That's all we're talking about.
It was a difficult question.
Yeah.
My nephew, who is supposed to be here, but I don't think he made it, totaled my car last year, and so I had to get a new car, so I'm not showing off that fancy car, but I have a Polestar. And there's no key, there's nothing. You just sit down and you go. There's no push, there's no power button. So the idea of walking into a room, lights turn on, it's a time of day, they know what the mood is, if it's the weekend, if it's midweek, if it's whatever it is, that it adjusts as you enter the room, as you exit the room, so it just adjusts. I think could be quite interesting, similar to my car. And you get in, just my partner Stephen, who's out there. If he sits down in the car, it knows he's driving, and it adjusts the seat and the lights to his. Yeah. Anyway, so
it's anticipating your needs.
Yeah. Yes. It is. So I guess that's the future. Although, from an aesthetic point of view, Blade Runner, Dune, Tron, I don't know. Right. Any of them. Something sexy, gorgeous, beautiful.
Love it. Teal?
I think great answers that we've talked about. And, I think when LEDs came along, the lighting community, some conversations were, what are we going to do? And I think the answer was light is light, and light is human engagement, and we'll still have light streaming through a window or raking along a really textured wall. So hopefully the technology does become more integrated and more intuitive, and hopefully the experiences that we have will still trigger memories. We might be using light to transport people to places that they can't physically get to. And that might be pretty magical, especially for people who don't have the ability to travel or et cetera. And we are working on projects where there are holograms and fantastical things being designed and considered. So all of those things may be possible, but I think in the end, the human experience, our connection with nature, if electric light can help us with that, great. But I think also if it can intuit what we want or what we need, that would be amazing. And if it can immerse us in new and different and unexpected experiences, that would be pretty great too. And as we learn more about wellness and the kinds of things, bright light in the middle of the day helps you sleep better at night, all of those kinds of things, if that can be integrated into the design process, that would be pretty amazing too.
Yeah, I think seems to be a lot of discussion now about health and wellness when it comes to our longevity, and not a lot of people talk about light. They talk about supplements, and they talk about yoga, and they talk about, all of which I do, but honestly, my wife and I always have this argument. She doesn't like a lot of light in the morning, and I just want light all the time. So there's just like this constant, and I just feel like that's an instinct. Your body's telling you, like, gravitate toward light. And I think
Put her in the basement.
Huh?
Put her in the basement.
We don't have a basement.
This is LA. Who has a basement?
Crawl space.
Yes, put her in the crawl space. I want to end with something simple and personal. So if there's one thing that you wish people understood about light but almost never do, what would it be? Teal, you start, then Carlos, then Chris.
So I think you've already heard tonight, less is more. And one of the images that you'll see cycling through is the Amangiri Resort, which is in this beautiful, dark, natural environment. And it's pretty incredible how little amount of light you need to accomplish and navigate that space. Now, of course, there's code compliance, which after the code inspectors leave, we turn the dimmers down. But don't put
Because you
that on
usually
tape.
write those codes. You usually give those specifications.
So I think, again, the idea of start with the concept, dream together, set those emotional targets, and then strip away all the unnecessary pieces so that you're left with the essence of a great, sometimes multi-layered design, and sometimes a couple of really thoughtful, elegant gestures.
Wonderful. Carlos?
Well, while I am engaged and involved with a few companies of designing lights and the object of light, you need to focus on the quality of light, which we do. But for the marketing material, it's like, what does this thing look like? But that really is not as important as the quality of light that it delivers.
This is the challenge, though, because it's hard to communicate in a photo. It's hard to communicate in a video. It's really meant to be experienced in person, and it's hard to get that across.
And I don't take credit for, I work with Teal all the time. You figure that out.
Chris?
I like Teal's quote about, or phrase about, elegant gestures. I think it is about that always, I think, in design. Whether it's architecture, lighting, landscape, and I think that for us, that's why we gravitate toward modernism, because it's just that minimalist approach to everything, but yet bringing in this warmth, and lighting now has, and Teal sort of alluded to it, like the change in lighting. We went from MR16s to LED, and not by choice, but by code. Eventually, and it was like, oh my God, this is horrific. How do we get back to the MR16s? The warmth of the halogen and the incandescent bulbs, which is now we're there. We're getting back to that, which is, I think, wonderful. And then just emotion. Like just finding opportunities to find drama, to find something, again, poetic within the experience of that space.
And that's what's so cool about modernism to me is the lines are severe and very minimal, but the materials are human, and so you're looking for that human, the light that humans respond to, that feels like a candle or an incandescent bulb. And so we did go through those dark times with LEDs. They weren't dark because they were LEDs.
They were really bright.
They were very bright, but dark figuratively. And blue.
They were very good.
On that note, I'm going to thank you all for this incredible conversation. A round of applause for our panelists. And I gave myself a perfect segue unintentionally because we're going to stop talking about light and we're going to start experiencing light with a demo that I believe is Patrick Burke from AudioVisions, who I work with in the LA office.
I'm going to come up front.
Oh, you're like the guy at the Golden Globes with a really bad seat and it takes a really long time to get up.
The night
The winner is
starts.
So we have this great partner in Lutron. They're sponsoring this event. They host this space. They have all of their technology in here. I'm not talking into the mic, so hopefully everybody can still hear me. And we love to show this off. So I've come up here with David a couple times. We've done demos with clients up here, with architects, to show what we can do with light. So I'm just going to run through what Ericsson would usually do for us so that y'all can see the technology that's on display in this room. Oh, it's like magic. You guys said this wasn't coming for 10 years. So we've actually lit up behind all of you right there in the cabinet. There's a little section with some light switches and rotary dimmers on top of that. That was the original rotary dimmer invented by the founder of Lutron, Joel Spira, in the 60s. And beneath that, they kind of show a cool thing. They've got the original box for that dimmer, which wasn't sold at hardware stores. That was kind of an interesting thing at the time. They sold it at Macy's. They sold it in a box that looked like a cigarette box. And the idea was that you weren't buying an appliance, you were buying a fashion accessory. I think that's kind of apropos to how we talk about lighting today. We talk about it as a way to enhance our life. We talk about it as a way to bring design into our spaces with designer lighting controls and with hidden fixtures. So, let's skip ahead here. I get to be that guy, sorry.
last call.
Yeah, exactly, right? We joke that we're going to have y'all clean up with us with this light. We want to show that the lights can get to bright white here. We talk about what LEDs and the time of undimmable.
Stop.
He goes, change it. Yeah.
Go away.
Okay, I will do that. So we'll bring them down a little bit here. So we talk about that time as kind of a bad time, and we want to get back to light that can go warm or can trigger senses that we like and not ones that we don't like. So the Ketra bulbs that are on display here, which you actually mentioned during your panel, can do more than just bright light. They can do more than just dim. They can change colors to make us feel things. So we get down to 10% light here, and then I believe we're going to go down even further. We can actually get down to 0.1% dimming, or true candlelight with Ketra bulbs, which is pretty incredible.
Whoa, stop that.
And so true candlelight with these bulbs is a really cool trick, and it's incredible to see that 0.1% light is actually something we might use. People think that we wouldn't have that, and that's terrible. Yeah, people think that we might not actually use light at this level, but it's great for things like bathrooms in the middle of the night. It's great for when we wake up and don't want to blind ourselves right in the morning. From here, we're going to go through what we call the natural show. This is lights that can actually mimic the daylight cycle. So we've gone into our early morning. We can come into afternoon here. These lights are smart enough to intelligently do this throughout the day. So when I turn the lights on, they're going to match the brightness and the color quality of the light that's outside, always. And so we can come through our afternoon as we go into the evening. Maybe we cook, we have dinner. It gets much more calm, much more warm. And then as we go to bed, the lights are going to do, they're going to follow our circadian rhythm, which is something that we talked a little bit about in terms of health and wellness. We naturally need light that does this to go to sleep, to wake up in the morning, to feel energized throughout the day. So having a system that allows us to do that intuitively and without somebody having to go on a phone and pick a color or pick a time of day is so helpful. We'll move forward here. Yeah, beautiful thing about the Ketra bulbs in particular and the Ketra fixtures is that they can hit these incredible ranges, and not just in tunable white, but also in color. Yeah, really pretty cool. So these are not just tunable white fixtures, they're full spectrum fixtures.
It's time for the nightclub.
Yeah, well, yeah, so these lights are also full spectrum. They can do a full spectrum of colors. That does seem kind of like a neat trick that we only use once, but there's actually some really practical advantages to having full spectrum light. And where we want to talk about that is art. I love showing this off because Lutron Ketra lights in particular have a really cool feature that we can use. So we can go cool light or warm light, but then they have a vibrancy mode that uses the full spectrum lighting to bring out particular colors in the artwork. So if I go back, you can see what a normal non-vibrancy mode would look like. And then look what that light does to the paintings. It's very cool. So when we've got clients who have beautiful artwork that we want to display, we need light that is going to be able to bring out the qualities and the features of that artwork. And then potentially we might want to use that full spectrum to highlight certain colors specifically within each painting. So cool for cool colors or warm for warmer colors. The Ketra fixtures are individually addressable, so we can do that even within the same room, or in this case, in the same track, I can do different colors across the entire spectrum. Skip ahead here and see what the colors can do for us in another practical application, painting layers of light on the room, showing off different moods that we can affect with the colors in the light. This is going to be kind of a nightclub effect. But if we wanted
now, so I'm not going to nightclub anymore.
Okay, we'll update. We'll come. This is more something you might use in a home, a California sunset type lighting where we might want to have dinner or an evening party with something like this. We're going back. We're going back to the bright white light here. Your eyes are going to adjust a little bit. Everything's going to look a little green as we search for natural white light here, coming from the colors. Well. Jump ahead. What we're going to show coming up here is going to be the natural light. Now, because it's dark outside, we've got that set to just go pretty warm. During the day, this would match the color of the light that was outside. So right now, as I go to match, we know it's evening outside, so we're going to go very warm. This is the example of what it might look like as we're winding down for bed while it's dark outside. And then we're done. And I'm going to cut that off.
By the way, you did a really good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.